joint Nelson Tasman Regional Transport Committee meeting. So I'll ask Drain to do the opening karakia, please.
Kia tai mai te maramatanga, kia tai mai te rangamarie, kia tai mai te kaha me te oraha, mō tēnei kaupapa, hui e tai kia.
Thank you, Drain. So welcome everyone. We are waiting for Councillor O'Neill-Stevens, so we'll in a moment accept him as an apology for lateness. Is anyone on Zoom? No members. No members, so I don't need to do that, but yes, I'll get to that in a moment, Councillor Courtney. I think as there is a number of the public here, just that toilets are out to the left. If there's a fire or the alarm goes, we go out this exit doors and assemble round by the back of the Armadillo's restaurant until the emergency services are cleared the building for our return. And that media are present and may be filming part or all of this meeting. So Matt's here in the room, our own comms people, Chris, and is Catherine online? I suspect yes, she is. So now turning to apologies, we have one from Mayor Nick Smith and Councillor O'Neill-Stevens for lateness. Is someone prepared to move those? Move Councillor Dowler, seconded Councillor Courtney. All those in favour will say aye. Against, the resolution is carried. Thank you. So now we'll move to public forum. Each individual has a maximum of 5 minutes to speak. If speaking on behalf of a group, a maximum of 10 minutes to speak. And we have a number registered, so we'll do them in the, we'll take them in the order that they're on my list. Firstly is Patrick Shortley. Patrick, if you'd like to come up to the table, grab a chair and pull the microphone in close. And press the talk button. Welcome, Councillor O'Neill-Stevens. Yes, so when you're ready, if the red light comes on, yes.
Good morning, and thank you for this opportunity to address the committee. I am wanting to address the issue, a long-standing issue of road speed along the Motueka Valley Highway, particularly around the area of Ngātamoti School. Some of you might recognise me. This is a drum that I beat on a fairly regular basis. But there is a need, I think, now for some priority and some urgency. We're about to see the cycle trail open in the very near future, and that's going to bring significantly increased cycle traffic and also the ability for pedestrians to walk along this piece of road. So I've sent a couple of slides, and one I know you've got a screen up there. This is Ngātamoti School. It's the entrance to Greenhill Road. You can see the triangle there, which is the sign for the junction with the Motueka Valley Highway. So that's literally taken right from the corner of the Motueka Valley Highway. As you can see, there's no verge, there's no footpath, there's no cycle trail. And can we move to the next slide? So that's actually the school building and the main entrance to the school. And the 100K sign is there for roadworks that are going on, but of course, normally it is a 100K road. So it illustrates, I think, just how urgent the need is for some kind of sensible restriction. Currently, there are no restrictions on this stretch of road or on the highway passing. For those of you who may be less familiar with the Motueka Valley Highway, it's a long, narrow, winding road. It's characterised by steep banks on one side, often and quite sheer drops on the other. There are very few verges. There are very few places to overtake. And it's a busy road. It's significantly used by heavy transport vehicles. logging trucks, milk tankers, gravel trucks, and so on and so forth. And the area of the Motueka Valley Highway immediately fronting the school is one of the few straights. It's about a 700-metre long straight stretch of road where people can, at considerable risk, actually overtake, and they do. And so we've been banging this drum now for a very long time indeed, and we would just really, really ask the committee to give priority to this long outstanding and anomalous situation in which we have a school surrounded by 100-kilometre roads, no footpaths, no berms, no safe runoff areas. Yeah, and really, I mean, I think I can probably almost leave it at that. There is one further slide which actually shows the strait. If we can, I don't. So on your left, you see there, just before the 100-kilometre sign, that is actually the access way into the school playing fields. It's not used by the children, but it is used by people getting into and out of the playgrounds. And what you can't see there, but another 100 metres down the road, is the access to the Ngātamoti Reserve and the fire station, which is virtually invisible. And the reserve is heavily used. There's the community rooms there as well. So there's a significant amount of traffic. But as you can see, I mean, if you've been stuck behind a camper van or a truck or something, you know, you see a stretch of road like that, you think, I can get past here. We frequently see people. So you come around, there are blind bends at either end of the stretch of road, I should say, as well. You can see the one at the far end there. So you see people come around the blind bend. If they're familiar with the road, they will immediately boot it to get past anything that's there because they know that there is a straight. But it's not at all uncommon to see people doing well in excess of the legal speed limit, just simply to get past vehicles. I don't know if there's anything. I have with me, incidentally, Andrea Blackburn, who's a member of the Ngātamoti School, and obviously staff. We work in close sort of cooperation and liaison with them. So I don't know if there are any questions.
Thank you. I will ask. We only have questions of clarification if there are any. Is not. So no, thank you. And we'll move on to Belinda Crisp, who has the same topic, if she's here. Belinda, I did fail to mention I'll give you a warning at 4.5 minutes, but Patrick never got to the warning. Well, not such much a warning, an indication that you're at 4.5 minutes. So when you're ready, Belinda.
Thank you. Kia ora koutou. Ko Belinda Crisp toko ingoa, from the Nelson Tasman Cycle Trails Trust. I did have a presentation. I'm not sure who's running that, and there should be some slides coming up shortly. So the Nelson Tasman Cycle Trails Trust is currently constructing a cycle trail that follows the Motueka Valley Highway between the Polkalolo Swing Bridge and the Peninsula Bridge in Ngāti Moti. In sections, the trail is built on road reserve. Where possible, the trail is located as far away from the road edge within road reserve, but in some parts, the trail is up to the marker post line next to the highway. The Grade 2 trail is two-way and will be between 1.7 and 2.2 metres wide and will be used by walkers and cyclists. If you could just show the next slide, please. Sorry, this one, there we go. There we go, I was in control of time. So you can see here the start of the construction of the trail. So while we're within road reserve, just to the right of that white line will be potentially trucks travelling at 100 kilometres an hour with cyclists passing each other at that point. We have one particular section just along the trail there. On the left-hand picture, you can see how close we are on a rather tricky corner that is about 200 to 300 metres north of Ngāti Moti School. And so this is far away from the road reserve, but within the legal road reserve that we could get the trail. It is expected that both locals and cycle tourists will cross from the trail to locations on the other side of the highway. The Motueka Valley Highway is in places narrow with without good shoulders or good sight lines. The Trust is concerned about the 100-kilometre speed limit that applies to the Motueka Valley Highway, and in particular, the section between the River Haven Cafe and the Peninsula Bridge, which is pictured in the background there, which will encompass the Ngāti Moti School and the rural community. So we're just putting another angle on and supporting Patrick's submission. So this is following the New Zealand Cycle Trail Guidelines 2019. These state that at low combinations of traffic volume and speed, no special provisions for cycling are required. However, at higher levels of traffic volume and speed, a cycle lane or wide shoulder is required. Given the current high speed limits of 100 kilometres, the Trust has complied with this guideline by ensuring the trail is on a separated bike trail. However, when it comes to crossings, the current speed limit poses a risk for the users of the cycle trail. For the purposes of this submission, I am treating the access from the trail to the Ngāti Moti School and the River Haven Cafe as a crossing. When considering a crossing under the cycle trail guidelines, the following factors are taken into consideration: traffic volumes, proportion of heavy vehicles, the speed environment, intervisibility, crossing distances, i.e. the width of the road, the surrounding environment, and crossing provision at other nearby locations along the trail and intersection controls along the road. If you can go to the next slide, please. Oh, I can go to the next slide. So you'll see in this figure, it shows the suggested crossing types for trails according to various combinations of traffic volume and speed limit. As the volume on the Motueka Valley Highway is under 2,000 traffic movements per day, an uncontrolled crossing would apply. However, with the speed limit at 100 kilometres, it is recommended in the guidelines that a stop or give way crossings are used, which we will do. However, the situation where cyclists have to give way gives the lowest level of service to the riders. Taking into account the other factors when considering crossings, such as the high proportion of heavy vehicles, the crossing distance, and the lack of other options to cross the highway, there is added potential risk to cyclists and locals walking the trail to get to the school or the cafe. The one factor that can be changed to reduce the risk is the speed.
You're at 4.5 minutes now.
Thank you. It is therefore requested that a generic speed reduction is adopted between River Haven Cafe and the Peninsula Bridge on the Motueka Valley Highway to reduce the risk to the locals, school children and cycle tourists who will be using the cycle trail and crossing the Motueka Valley Highway. Finally, and I'll do this in 10 seconds, the Nelson Tasman Cycle Trails Trust strongly supports the Ngāti Moti School and the Motueka Valley Association in their request for the reduction in speed and wish to be included in any consultation on the regional speed management plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of clarification for Belinda? Belinda? Appears not, so thank you. Thank you for your submission. We'll now move to Kate Malcolm. Welcome, Kate. And you have heard, I'll give you an indication at 4.5 minutes. Pull that speaker in close and push the talk button, even a bit closer than that. It's difficult for the people behind. That's up here.
Tēnā koutou katoa. My topic is congestion and the Hope bypass. During the recent election campaign, I had occasion to observe closely the flow of traffic to and from Nelson at the rush hour, both on Waimea Road and on Rocks Road. Two things struck me as I gazed at this long, slow procession. Firstly, The amazing success of the oil industry and the automotive industry in getting us hooked on their products to the extent we're at the mercy of overseas interests and developments. The second was the success of the two recent bypasses in feeding this flow of traffic. I mean, the Stoke bypass and the Ruby Bay bypass. These two highways have encouraged and enabled people to live far from work with the promise of a smooth, easy commute into town. The congestion I was looking at, and that was caused by these two success stories, is wasteful, obviously, of both time and fuel, and adds to global warming every day. And so let's have another bypass. Let's remove the annoying and costly interruptions at the Queen Street Gladstone Road intersection. Let the traffic on State Highway 6 flow freely and fast to get quicker to the clogged up roads in Nelson. It's really a Richmond bypass, isn't it? I understand it is to fly over Queen Street so that trucks and cars and everything don't need to stop at that intersection. No need to look at any other options, no need to heed the evidence that suggests congestion will only increase with the extra traffic this bypass will encourage. No need to question whether it's sensible to have heavily laden trucks hauling themselves up and over rather than lightweight pedestrians and cycles. It's rather like the police after a murder, pinning all their attention on one particular possible perpetrator and letting the real culprit off scot-free. To me, claiming that an overpass here will unlock congestion is a type of misinformation that will cost the community dearly in the future. The real culprit in congestion is the car driver, who doesn't consider any other way of getting to work, doesn't even consider sharing the ride. Better to face this fact, please face this fact, and concentrate your efforts on persuading those drivers to use the bus or share the ride. Make those options more appealing than driving alone. At the same time, investigate the proposal of an overpass at the problem intersection for bikes and pedestrians with a roundabout at ground level to allow that traffic to flow more freely. The challenge for Nelson Tasman generally is to accommodate more people at the same time as reducing the number of individual car trips they need to make. I'd love something to be put in place at this intersection that would achieve this result. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Do we have any questions of clarification? It appears not, so thank you, Kate. Next speaker is Peter Olenshaw. Welcome, Peter. Someone might need to turn the other microphone off.
Cool. Thank you. We have an idea for the Queen Street State Highway 6 intersection. It's a flyover, Jim, but not as we know it. How do we get this going?
Peter, can you just clarify for everyone, you're speaking for a group, are you?
Yeah, sorry.
What the group is.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't even read that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, sorry. Flying flag. Why is that not working? Oh, there we go. Cool. Can I do it with this or not? Yeah, so it's a flyover, Jim, but not as we know it. So at the core of the idea is actually a two-lane roundabout where there's no waiting for if there's no traffic. We believe that Wakatahi own the block of land where the car yard is, so there would seem to be space for this. here I've superimposed at the same scale the Innisbrook roundabout on top of the car yard there, directly as it is in relation to north, not with, I'm not trying to draw diagrams of how the actual roundabout might be, it's just for a sense of scale. But the thing is with two-lane roundabouts, while they might be quite good for congestion, and we think the amount of traffic going through the Innisbrook dual-lane roundabout would not be significantly different to here. I'd be interested to know traffic engineers' advice on that. Roundabouts, however, and particularly two-lane roundabouts, are horrendous for people on bikes and people walking. And so that's why we go back to this idea of what we're calling the hover ring, and it's based, these pictures in Eindhoven in Holland, and they call it the Hoven ring because it's near Eindhoven. So rather than having a high carbon emission industrial scale concrete overbridge, putting trucks with their noise and pollution up into the air to spread around the population below, we could have a beautiful, lightweight, carbon negative timber hovering. Instead of a blight on the Great Taste Trail, that could be made an absolute feature. Instead of a blight on the pier of Richmond, a brilliant new gateway. We've already had interest from a timber design guru, Dr. Andy Buchanan, who was responsible for the NMIT G Block timber construction there, and is actually advising Whakatahi on design standards for new timber bridges for motor vehicles. So it's he's dead keen on it, and yeah, it's completely possible according to him. Wouldn't it be great if we could make it from locally sourced timber, processed into high performance engineered timber just a few kilometres down the road? And do you actually want Richmond to be bypassed? As that's what would happen with a motor vehicle flyover. The Hope bypass is hoping to solve congestion by expanding road capacity. It seems blindingly obvious that as the solution to road congestion, but it's completely wrong. Obama's transport advisor famously said, expanding road capacities to solve congestion is like loosening your belt to ease obesity. It doesn't deal with the problem. Expanding road capacity is guaranteed to induce more traffic and so worsen congestion in anything but the short term. It's like a dog chasing its tail. Why is it at school holidays, congestion all but disappears? It's not because the trucks are on holiday, that the tradies have down tools. We just need to make it like school holidays all year round. And what's not to like about that? We shouldn't assume that mode shift and urban densification initiatives will be failures. And this is I think the single most important thing. As long as we continue to make car commuting the most attractive option for people, why should we be surprised that the roads are clogged by drivers bringing their 3-seat sofa into town? If we don't make it safe for an 8-year-old to get to school under their own steam, why should we be surprised that trucks and tradies are being held up by people driving their kids to school? We need to make it safe, pleasant and convenient for 8 to 80-year-olds to bike on a lot of their trips, to bus a lot of others, and that's where the hovering comes in. People overseas are tearing down their concrete flyovers. This is Birmingham, there's more in Liverpool and other places. Yet we're thinking of putting one in. Sorry, these slides are a bit mixed up. And far from joining Berryfields, etc., to the rest of Richmond, it actually creates a barrier. This is one that might be held up as an example, and this is at Herwood Airport in Christchurch. So we urge you to build a bright beacon for Richmond instead of an ugly concrete mess, putting the noise of trucks up in the air to spread their pollution. We urge you to consider this hovering idea. And I'd just like to finish with the consultation document you're about to speak about. I really think it needs to include Whakatahi's safe speed recommendations. I find it bizarre that it doesn't, and perhaps I missed it, but We suggest you replace the 2019 survey results paragraph with Wakatahi's safe speed recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I think I like that. I'm just curious. I noticed that for access for the cycles and pedestrians to come onto the hovering,
yep,
that there is built up land to
yes,
help that access. And you had that superimposed picture of the roundabout earlier in the thing. Have you done any work to understand how much extra land is needed for those build-ups and ramps?
Can I go back? I don't seem to be able to go back. Oh, sorry. Okay, so this one. Oops. Yeah, so you probably can't see it. Have I got to point it? Yeah. Like it's dead easy along the Great Taste Trail to do a 1 in 12 ramp, no matter how high the hovering is, no matter how high we have to allow for trucks to get under. But even in Queen Street, you can hardly see this, but there's 69 metres here where it could come down into Queen Street at a 1 in 12 ramp, still giving 5 metres clearance for trucks under there. Whether that's enough, look, it's early days, but ideally you'd have at least 3 of those ramps. And also overseas there are situations where there are spiral ramps for cycles. I've used one in Vienna to cross over the Danube, and they work fine and take up much less area than a long ramp. Yeah. And a 1 in 12 ramp, sorry, is a wheelchair accessible ramp. Yeah.
To Alan, Neil, and Richard Copenhagen, New Zealand Automobile Association. So welcome, Alan and Richard. You've heard, I'll give you a warning half a minute before time. So when you're ready, thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. Richard and I, as has been said, from the Automobile Association Nelson District. Richard is our current chair, and he's a national councillor as well. I'm a district councillor and former chair, and until March this year was a trustee of the AA Research Foundation. Our topic is AA Research Foundation evidence proves that the value of median barriers in reducing DSIs, deaths and serious injuries. But a little bit about the foundation. In 2011, NZAA established a dedicated research arm, and that's AARF. We often call it ARF, and that was to fill knowledge gaps in New Zealand's quite small and limited road safety and transport research sector. Since then, AA has provided more than $3 million to the foundation for quite a wide variety of projects. Is that better? Yes, I've just turned it on and off. Our additional funding has also come from partnership agreements with other road safety organisations. That's a very significant investment, $3 million plus. Nearly 24 research topics have been looked at since the inception of the foundation, and these include driver impairment relating to recidivist drink drivers, New Zealand's early experience on alcohol interlocks, seatbelt use and opportunities and barriers related to expanding the EV fleet in New Zealand. Some of the Foundation's research has had international acclaim and has been presented at international conferences. One of the recent projects completed by the Foundation was the safety benefits of new roads, which directly touched on what's happening in the Tasman region. WSB was commissioned to analyse road trauma rates before and after the new sections of highway or bypasses were built at 7 locations in New Zealand. It looked at incidents on both the new bypass and the old road combined and compared those figures to when there was just one road before. AA believes this is the first time analysis in New Zealand has looked at the combined safety record of both the old and new routes following the opening of a new stretch of highway or bypass. So one of the routes that was studied was our State Highway 60 Ruby Bay bypass. And Richard's going to talk about the outcome of that.
Yeah, so the research found, I'll start again. The research found that after a new road or bypass was built, there was on average a 37% reduction in deaths and serious injuries on both the routes compared to previously when it was a single route. Ruby Bay bypass fared slightly better than average in comparison with incidents in the 9 years before the bypass was opened in 2010, and then the 9 years after 2010, there was a 40% reduction in deaths and serious injuries. Overall injuries fell from 67 to 40. So in 2001 to 2009, prior to the bypass opening, there were 15 deaths and serious injuries. And in 2011 to 2019, they had a drop down to 9 deaths and serious injuries. The report highlights that Ruby Bay bypass was one of 2 stretches of the 8 that were analysed that didn't have a continuous median barrier on it. And the researchers noted that the crash reductions would have been even greater if there had been median barriers present. And so these findings, are significant and relevant to the government's road safety goals. It shows that new highways are safer because generally they have better safety features, such as barriers, and are designed for modern conditions involving heavier vehicles and higher traffic volumes. And, while this is an obvious conclusion, the report demonstrates that the new standards are having a real and significant impact on positive safety outcomes for road users. Because not only do these modern highways have very few severe crashes, but by shifting the traffic off the old route, it greatly reduces the risks in those locations. And this is particularly beneficial where the highways currently go through main streets and shopping centres of communities. And it's also pertinent to the government's road to zero objectives with the aim to reduce the country's road toll by 40% by 2030. So in conclusion, backed by the report, and the AA supports and welcomes the project to install median barriers as proposed on State Highway 60 Ruby Bay bypass. The report is publicly available on the AA website. I have a copy here that I can leave with you if you would like. Thank you for the opportunity to present, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Dowling. I know what your questions are about.
Yeah, so during the introduction, the comment was made of alcohol impaired drivers. I have a concern that we're not considering other abuse impaired drivers. I know for a fact that some of the fatal accidents that have happened over the last couple of years have been caused by people highly affected by P. So is there a chance of those stats being brought into your records?
The AA has been concerned for a long time about the effect of impaired driving, both from alcohol and drug use. And in fact, one of our 8 election calls this year to all the political parties was to increase the enforcement of both alcohol and drug driving, and to push for the introduction of roadside drug testing. Associated report that AA did was revealed that although the police were being funded for a certain percentage of alcohol tests a year, they were only carrying out roughly half the number they were funded for. And as a result of the media attention last year, police have upped their game and last year delivered double the number of alcohol roadside tests than they had previous 2 or 3 years. So it's certainly something that's very topical with AA and our membership, and we're pushing hard for whoever's in government to address this.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Alan and Richard. Really appreciate that. So that brings us to the end of the public forum. So we will move to some other matters. Firstly, a welcome to Rob from NZTA as the representative for Wakakotari NZTA. Thank you, Rob, and warm welcome. And then the other matter is alternates. Rohan, I guess it's to Councillor O'Neill Stevens, or just for the record, we need that said who the alternative is. For
one, Mr. Melvin Francis Courtney.
Thank you. And then that leads us to declarations of interest. Are there any? Appears not. And Mayor King will be along in a while or shortly. He has speaking rights but not voting rights at this meeting. So with that, I'll move to confirmation of minutes. There's a number of them, so we'll work through them one by one. The first one is the minutes of the joint Nelson-Tasman Regional Transport Committee held on Friday, the 11th of August 2023, be confirmed as a true and correct record of the meeting. Someone willing to move? Councillor O'Neill Stevens, seconded Councillor Dowler. All those in favour will say aye. Against, resolution is carried. Confirmation that the confidential minutes of the joint Nelson-Tasman Regional Transport Committee meeting held on Friday, the 11th of August 2023, be confirmed as a true and correct record of the meeting. Moved Councillor Courtney, seconded Councillor Dowler. All those in favour will say aye. Against, resolution is carried. And the minutes of the extraordinary joint Nelson-Tasman Regional Transport Committee meeting held on Friday, the 15th of September 2023, be confirmed as a true and correct record of the meeting. Move Councillor O'Neill Stevens. Were you there? Oh, that's not the one you were away at, is it? Oh. No, okay. That's cheers. Just seconded. Oh, right. Second Councillor Dowler. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Right. So we'll now move to reports. So the first one is public transport update. Brian, I think you are delegating that to someone who.
Yes, I've got Melanie from from both Nelson and Tasman, I suppose, to talk to that as well as some supporting staff.
So welcome, Melanie, Jane, and Alec.
Through the chair, I will just start by, and I'm unsure if you've been introduced to Madeline. This is her first report, and we've all had to write our first report and sit in front of a committee. So just want to bring that to your attention. She will be fine. She's written a really, really good report, but it is her first report, and yeah, we hope you
thank you.
Take that into account. I'll leave that at that then. Thank you.
Hold on like a nice and close, Melanie, because I imagine you have a soft voice as well.
Kia ora koutou katoa. I'm Madeline Watts, and I am the Public Transport Operations Supervisor for both Nelson and Tasman. I would like to present the public transport update report to the committee today. I will take the report as read. However, I will take any questions that may follow on from that. And at this stage, there are no supplementary points that I'd like to raise in addition to the report. Thank you.
Right, thank you. So any questions, or a mover or seconder, or any discussion? Slow Neil Stevens has moved the resolutions. And Councillor Dowler, you're happy to second. I just had one, Melanie, if I may, just in relation that there was no sort of financial update in the report. Is that something that's coming to a future meeting, or are you able to give us an indicative sort of indication how that's going?
Thank you. Yes, I would recommend bringing that to the next meeting if possible. We have only filed our first return with Waka Kotahi on the 15th of October, accounting for the first 2 months of the services. So we can collate that information and bring it to the next meeting. Right.
Will we be getting regular updates around the financial situation, because it's a little bit moving, particularly with what, if anything, the new government may do?
Certainly, we can provide regular updates, and I note that point that we're in a bit of a holding position, waiting to see what the government announces in terms of concessions, and how that might impact our patronage and revenue going forward. So yes, we can provide a regular report on that, and an update once we hear from government what the go forward is on the concessions.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Councillor Dowler and Councillor Neil Stevens.
Yeah, just seeing in the motion about dogs or pets on buses. So have you any idea on how many you think may happen? Like when I walk through the Mitre 10 Mega on the Saturday, since I've allowed pets in there, the other day I think I counted about 20 dogs. So it's certainly people are using the rules to the extent of what they want to do, take their dog out. So if a person jumps on a bus and the dog has to be contained or muzzled, if it's muzzled, it means it's on a lead. What stops the person putting the dog on the seat next door to them? Does it have to remain on the floor? Are there going to be rules, etc. for that?
Thank you. Yes, I think that is something that we would need to look at very closely, because I think there would be some views to that would not, people who wouldn't want to support seeing dogs uncontained on buses. So at this stage, we're just asking the committee to recommend whether they want us to look further into that policy or not. The initial feedback from the operator is that they would like it to be more seriously considered, and a fully informed decision made around that.
So maybe we have a proper report on that for the next meeting, maybe to maybe set some guidelines or some rules about whatever.
I think that's what they recommend. Recommendations indicating. Councillor Neil Stevens.
I just wanted to know in relation to the report on the feasibility of extending our concessions to total mobility card holders, as one of the people who flagged this. It's just that this is something that's been raised a few times in the community, and was something where we are currently out of step with what a lot of other public transport operators are doing. And so I just want to say a huge thank you to staff for progressing this as quickly as they have in response to those feedback. And I hope we can get something sorted ASAP.
Thank you. Councillor Courtney.
Thank you. Chair Stewart. Welcome, Madeline.
Thank you.
Good to have you on board. Can I be parochial? And mention Dodson's Valley, north of Nelson. Previously, under before the e-buses came in, they had a bus service up to Washington Valley, and there's not one now. So could you just take that feedback away with you and perhaps have a look at that for us? I'm asking it because in time it will link up, Dodson's Valley will link up, I believe, with the new Bayview subdivision, and I think then there'll definitely be a need for that. So can I leave that with you?
Yes, certainly we'll take that on board. We are aware of that potential need for a link to Bayview subdivision. At this stage, we're receiving feedback on various routes and stops across the region, and the approach that we've been taking is to collate that feedback and look at a 12-month review, see if there are any significant changes to routes that are required on the network, and certainly that Dodson's Valley route is one that has been raised with us. So thank you. Yes, we've
that's a very good answer. I'm very pleased about that. Can I look at, are you able to talk about wage rates for the drivers? You've mentioned in your report that they're increased. At what level are they now? Are they above the minimum wage?
Yes, they are.
Above the minimum wage, not the minimum wage, but above it.
Above minimum wage.
Thank you. That's good.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So I'd just like to say from a Waka Kotahi perspective, I'd like to congratulate the PT team on the great job that you guys have done in rolling out this new service. I think it's a real benefit to the entire region. We also like to offer our support and to access and utilise feedback and consider what changes might be appropriate over time as you develop the service. And regarding the carriage of dogs, it's a really good question. There's a couple of policies out there. There's Auckland City Council and Greater Wellington have also got a policy as well that we could provide to you maybe to help you all get together. Thank you.
I just can't resist doing the one stat that should all be in our minds is that in the 12 months from last September to this September, we've had a 95% increase in bus patronage.
Kia ora katoa. I'm presenting the report for the Regional Transport Committee Joint Speed Management Plan consultation. And this report seeks approval to consult on 4 urban and 4 rural options, and on one option to include in the draft plan, and on timing of the consultation. And just want to start by saying that there is an error in the recommendations, which has been picked up by the admin crew. So option 2 should read 60 kilometres an hour in rural residential areas and winding and or narrow unsealed roads, and 80 kilometres an hour on high-risk rural roads and adjacent roads. And option 3 should read 60 kilometres an hour in rural residential areas and 80 kilometres an hour elsewhere. So what we've done is moved the 60 kilometres an hour on winding and or narrow unsealed roads from option 3 to option 2. And that is consistent with the table 2 later on in the report. So just some background to speed management and the development of a speed management plan. The setting speed limits rule in 2022 requires road controlling authorities and regional transport committees to produce a speed management plan. And a speed management plan is a document that sets speed limits, and that's an important change from the previous situation where speed limits were set by bylaws. A speed management plan is a 10-year plan with a 3-year implementation period or implementation plan, and is reviewed every 3 years. The plans are to have regard to Waka Kotahi's guidance on safe and appropriate speeds and are to be certified by Waka Kotahi. The rule requires consultation to start on the 5th of October, and we have applied for and received an extension through to the 7th of November, and they are to be submitted for certification by the 29th of March 2024, and our extension has extended that to the 3rd of May 2024. The rule has some specific requirements around schools and in 70 and 90 kilometre an hour areas. So schools are required to reduce the speed limits, or we are required to reduce the speed limits around schools to 30 kilometres an hour within 100 metres of the school boundary in urban areas, and that can be either a permanent or a variable limit, and to 30 to 60 kilometres an hour in rural areas. We are required to use reasonable efforts to get 40% of our schools compliant by 30th of June 2024, and all schools must comply by 30th of December 2027. And there is a little bit of variation with rural schools. So rural schools which are set at greater than 30 kilometres an hour are to be reviewed in 2027 and reduced to 30, or explain why 60 or a higher limit is a safe and appropriate limit. And the sorts of factors that are taken into account there are whether there's off-street parking, whether there are pupils crossing the road, those sorts of things. So we've spent some time with schools throughout the region and discussed with them what is appropriate for them, and those are shown in the options that we've got. In 70 kilometre an hour zones, we are required to review all of the 70 kilometre an hour zones, 70 and 90s, and we don't actually have any 90s in our area, and either change them to 60 or explain why 70 is a safe and appropriate speed. And as we looked at those zones, it became apparent that it was difficult to come up with a good argument as to why they are safe at 70, why 70 is a safe and appropriate speed for them, bearing in mind the definitions of safe and appropriate speeds which are contained within Waka Kotahi's guidance. So can we bring the presentation up, please? So we have 4 options that we are proposing to consult on. And these options range from the absolute minimum that the rule requires us to do, and these options that are on the screen are the urban options. So option A is the absolute minimum that the rule requires us to do. And option D is consistent with Waka Kotahi's safe and appropriate speeds. And options B and C sit somewhere between them. And so we have these 4 options. And when we talked about consulting on options, at a staff level, we discussed the idea of consulting on a single option, and we concluded that that limits our ability to implement something that's different to what we have consulted on. And previous experience we've had indicates that we are required, if we want to do something that's different to what we've consulted on, then we need to then go back and consult on that option again. And so we have are suggesting that we consult on 4 options, which cover the gambit of the sorts of options that we're likely to have.
So I might just interrupt there. So one point to make is that we'll get further into the presentation, but absolutely the focus on the consultation with the community is those 4 options and understanding their views and their preferences on it. So I just really want to stress that. We do have to do a straw man, and Bill will come to that. But our whole approach to the consultation is understanding the community's views on the 4 urban and the 4 rural options. And so I just need to interrupt you for a moment. Sorry, Bill. We just need to, the mayor needs to leave by 10 o'clock. That's a hard line. So I might just pause the introduction, Bill, which we'll come back to, just so the mayor can talk to this piece and we can proceed with the rest of the meeting.
Thanks, Dwayne. Apologies, Bill, for butting in. Cheers, Stuart. I guess the key thing is a couple of key decisions in terms of timing of consultation and then obviously what to consult on. I think Bill's highlighted the fact that the intention, or certainly the recommendation, to use multiple options in order to give people the opportunity to provide feedback, which may not necessarily align with any one of the 4 options, but that does give the scope within the decision-making process to make those changes without having to go back and go out through the thing, which would be immensely frustrating for everybody. So I support the idea of having multiple options to go out with. I think it's important to recognise there is a substantial difference between Nelson and Tasman, and the success or otherwise of these joint working groups is at least in part in recognising those significant differences, and particularly when it comes to the rural road network. It may well be not a significant impact on people who live in town to change all the speed limits in rural areas to 60, but I can 100% assure you, if you live a long way up multiple rural roads and you go from having to drive at, being able to drive at a range of speeds that suit the conditions to having to drive at 60 kilometres an hour for 20, 30, 40 kilometres on a return trip into town and back, take your kids to school and back, that is a very significant impact in rural areas. I also think in terms of consultation, if the straw man is one extreme or the other, i.e. status quo or 30s and 60s everywhere, my personal view is one part of that is, maybe people, you'll get a reaction to it. The other is people just go, it's a pre-done deal. It just meets Waka Kotahi's guideline. No point putting in anything, even if we like it, don't like it, we just won't bother, because I've already determined what the outcome is. So again, my view is one of the mid options, B, C, or 2, 3, should be the straw man. I have a preference, but probably something closer to B and 2. But I get that, C and 3. But I think I'd be really disappointed, particularly given the impact on rural communities of D4. And I also think there's a risk that we go 30s and 60s in large areas, people's, I think, already minimal following of signs will become even less as people go, well, the speed limits just don't make sense to me. And that'll flow through into their observance of other speed limits, because the ones they use most regularly will be seen as not making sense in lots of situations. And so I think there's a risk of a kind of unintended consequence of trying to achieve one thing that actually you have precisely the reverse effect. And so the focus should be, in my view, on those areas of high risk, on areas where most people see the common sense of the limit that's applied, and hence it's self-enforcing. Because the other thing is, all rural streets and the vast majority of the rural network, there will never be any enforcement. So you are relying on people effectively self-managing. And the last point is, I think that, I know it's not contained in this agenda, but in some of the initial work, a lot of roads that you might, if you do go down the 60 kind of view, put 60K signs on, which currently don't have any sign at all,
are already being driven at 30 or 28 or 41 and 37. So you don't actually gain anything by putting a 60k sign in those situations. And lastly, the cost of the whole kind of implications, signage, etc., will be significantly greater, I expect, for the large rural area than it is for the smaller urban one, depending on the choices that are made. So apologies for butting in and going early. And clearly, I don't have a vote in this process, so I just thought I'd provide my feedback, and I look forward to whatever you come out with as a consultation process. I do think what you consult on is probably more important than when, from my perspective.
Thank you. Your next appointment's waiting. So we'll come back to you, Bill, to carry on.
Great, thanks. So we're suggesting the four options. We think that will give us some better feedback from our community, and we are seeking some good, strong feedback from the community about what is important to them in terms of speed in their environment. So those are the urban options. As I said, option A is the absolute minimum that we are required to do under the rule, and option D is consistent with Whakatahi's safe and appropriate speeds. And the rural options, again, option 1 is the absolute minimum that we are required to do, and option 4 is consistent with the safe and appropriate speeds, and there are 2 options in between them. And so that's where we're at with the options. In terms of our consultation process, we have developed some consultation documents which are attached to the report. They consist of an engagement document and a draft plan, and there are some subtle differences between those documents and some significant differences. The consultation document, the engagement document, outlines the background behind speed management. It describes the options being consulted on, and it includes a feedback form. The draft plan outlines again, a background behind speed management, the vision, the legal requirements, some strategies and plans that underline it, both central and local, and will include a proposal for consultation. And the draft that is before you in the attachments does not. And so we need to make a decision on what options we will include in the draft plan, because it must include some proposal of where we're likely to go. And there is a risk that in putting that option in there, we give the impression that we have a preferred option and that is a done deal. So we're asking you to choose one of those options, both an urban and a rural, to go into the draft plan. In terms of the process, our primary tool for consultation will be online, and it is through Shape Tasman, with a direct link from Shape Nelson into the Shape Tasman component. There will be some interactive maps, and I'll just ask Jane to demonstrate those maps now. Hopefully.
Here we go.
Hey, it comes back. Here we go. So, what you are seeing in the
screen share.
Oh. Right. Thank you. So, what you're seeing on screen is what we've got. An interactive map which shows Nelson. It will show Tasman. What I've done is zoomed in here on Brightwater. We've got a legend to the side. The green lines that you're seeing at the moment, that is when it is urban option A, and it's showing you what the speed limit is at the moment, which is 50. Sorry, the legend is far too small to see. And what it also shows you is that orange line running through Brightwater there with it, and it's got slightly darker on the outside, and that is showing you it's got a changed area. So this is option A, which only looks at the school area and connecting into the town centre. What I'm quickly going to go through is in this layer area is quickly show you what I'll take away the legend. So in the urban area, you'll see colours. Green colour is 50k, the orange is 30, and if you see a blue colour pop up, that will be 40. So I'm just taking the legend away. Sorry. And then I'm going to flick to our urban option B, which is the school urban option B, which is our what we're calling our school and town centre zone. So we've got Brightwater here, we've got the main road of Brightwater, and we've got feeder streets that we've got many residents living here with children. So we've created a slower environment. So this is almost like a little test area, which we've done across the townships. It will differ between the townships, but this just gives you an idea of what 30k would look like in Brightwater.
Sorry, can I just interrupt? Is it possible to screen share, please?
Oh, sorry. I think they're working on it.
Councillor
okay, fair enough.
We are working on it. It appears there's a technical issue with it, so we'll.
All right, thanks.
It's just impossible. Sorry, my apologies.
Is that Councillor Butler? Because I could sit down with you after the presentation and just give you a quick whirl around, if that's okay.
Yes, I'm not in Tasman, but yes, if we could, that would be good. Can we just be in touch? Thanks.
Yeah, I'll follow up after the meeting. Thank you. So then I'm moving on to option C. This is our 40k area. So one thing to note is that the urban connectors, what we call, they're kind of like the main feeder streets. These will stay at 50 kilometres. Whereas it's the local streets, which would be going down to 40k. And then when I move on to option D, so this is looking at 30k, and again, those urban connectors are staying at 50k. So that's just a quick view. We've done this for the whole area, and I'm just going to zoom out a little bit now. Actually, I know Celia's not here with us, but we'll zoom up to Golden Bay. What I'm going to flick onto now, put that back. Yeah, I'm going to flick onto the rural area. So again, just bringing this, sorry, I just move that slightly over. Bear with me. I'll move. All right. So just going for the colours. So what you're seeing here, that light blue, that's a 100k area. If you see a light green prop up, that's going to be an 80k area. When it's a red area, that is a 60k area. So 60ks are often used for our rural residential areas or our windy, unsealed roads. So what you're saying, for option 1 for the rural area, that's really just around those rural schools. And I haven't zoomed in on one of those, but I will shortly after this overview. But moving on to rural 2, this is looking at our windy, unsealed roads. So if you've driven up over almost onto the west coast, you'll know that that dry road is unsealed, very windy, but there are straighter sections on that. So that's why they remain unchanged. Going through to rural 3, this is where we're looking at all of the non-residential roads as being 80. And then our final one is if we're looking at the safe and appropriate speed, this is where you'll get those unsealed roads, we're all dropping down to 60s, whereas your sealed roads your straighter sealed roads are still staying at the 80. So that's a quick overview. And just before I finish, just zoom in, and just because this morning we have heard from someone at Ngāti Moti. I'll just show you if I can find it. Jamie North, thank you. There we go. I'm dropping it down back to rural one. So we've got Ngāti Moti. We've seen some photos today. What we're planning for Ngāti Moti under rural one, that's just the first step, is that side road becomes a permanent 30. The road in front where they was talking today about where the cycleway will go through, that would be dropping to 60, with outside the school gets a variable 30. And if I flick it through quickly, the other options, you'll see, so this Mutri Valley Highway, that will be dropping down to 80 in that surrounding area. There's not many differences. I've probably zoomed in too closely. But what also I haven't shown you is when this map is up and running, you can click on any particular road throughout the district, and it will give you what the option is for every stage and the reason why we're changing it, what the difference is. So, thank you.
Just a few other things here. So that's the maps, which will really form the bulk of our consultation and online material. In addition, we are proposing to go through some Facebook, have some surveys, do some webinars, include some material at libraries and service centres, do some pop-ins at the libraries, and do some print and radio advertising and on Newsline and our Nelson. So fairly broad consultation process. The other question that we're going to be asking you to decide this morning is regarding the timing of the consultation. And as I said, the rule requires a start on the 5th of October. We do have an extension to the 7th of November. But we have received some feedback from members of the committee that that timing was not good. There are some questions about Waka Kotahi consulting on their national state highway plan in mid-February, and there was a feeling that maybe that would be preferable. And so staff have applied for an extension to mid-February, which we decided would be on the basis that we wouldn't need to use it. We haven't received a response from Waka Kotahi on that as yet. So there are probably three options for you to decide from in terms of timing. The first one is starting on the 13th of November, and that is a delay of a week from what we had originally proposed and what we have approval for. And that was because of the uncertainty regarding timing. And we didn't want to be going out and booking newspaper ads and radio ads if there was the possibility of us extending till the middle of February. So that week gives us some time to organise that if that's the way we go. So that has some advantages in that it is largely compliant with the legislation. It is consistent with residents' expectations, and we have spoken to many residents who have come to us and said, we want to change our speed limits and it needs to be done with some urgency. And we have told them we will be consulting on the speed management plan at the end of the year. Wait for that and provide us your feedback through that. The other advantage it does have is that it avoids overlapping our consultation with our LTP consultation and our National Land Transport Plan consultation. So there are some advantages. There are some disadvantages in that is out of step with Waka Kotahi's consultation. It also will close over the holiday period or very soon before that. We are proposing to close on the 7th of January, which is the day before Jane and I get back to work, and we can start processing that material. And so that could possibly open us to some criticism. The second option is starting in mid-February, which is more or less consistent with Waka Kotahi's process. But we note that there is a possibility that may change us again as well. So there is a risk in that. It may enable us to have a little more clarity on the direction of the new government, although that in itself is not certain. It does have some disadvantages in that it delays the process, and those people who are expecting some material by the end of the year may be disappointed. It overlaps with our RLTP and LTP consultation, and it is outside of the legal requirements. And the third option is to lay on the table. And that has some advantages in that we can leave this process until there's clarity about the new government's direction. Now, I should add that we're not sure when that clarity will happen. And certainly the process of developing, consulting on, and implementing a new rule, a new speed limit setting rule, is likely to be a fairly lengthy process. So that then has some disadvantages in that it further delays our action on speed limits, and it's not compliant with the rule. So that is the decisions we need to make. The process following this is that we will consult. There will be some hearings with this committee. There'll be we'll probably have a workshop where we discuss the results of the consultation. There will be a deliberations meeting of this committee, which will make a recommendation to the joint committee for approving a draft plan, and then that will be submitted to the director for certification.
Thanks, Phil, and for that comprehensive introduction. And I might just very briefly summarise the three things we need from you today, really. The first is assuming we proceed now. That is, to approve the consultation material in the draft plan. We need to understand what those approval for those four options for urban and rural that are up there. The second thing we need from you is the straw man proposal. The option, the urban option and the rural option we include in the draft plan. And the third thing we need from you is to decide whether to approve the material now and consult now, approve the material now, consult later, or just let the whole matter lie on the table and wait a bit longer. And on that last one, we've kind of contemplated that we would have potentially approval from Okate for an extension in the next couple of days. And you'll see in the last matter, resolution 9 there talks about approved consultation commencing before 13 November 2023 or 20 February 2024 if Waka Kotahi give approval for an extension. If you do not want to wait and consult in February, then we will just need to change that resolution to delete the red text. And basically, we just approve them through now, consult now. Thank you.
But we'll get there, I'm confident. So we have quite a number of issues. I'm just wondering how we do this. I guess there are, well, I think there's 11 or 12 recommendations. Whether we want to talk about the speed first or the consultation first.
Yeah, through the chair. It would certainly be helpful to get an indication that you want to progress the documentation now, and so knowing when you want to confirm you want to discuss it now and agree it now, and make a call on the consultation now would probably be the first thing to agree.
We'll do that. So, Councillor Neil Stevens, do you want to start?
Yes, I think we should now. Is that all you want, or do you want my questions in relation to consultation as well?
Yes, I think so.
All right. just in terms of the maps, when you click on a road, are we flagging what the identified safe and appropriate speed is?
When you click on a road, it will show you the options. The options have been overlaid with Waka Kotahi's mega maps, which is all of their safe and appropriate speeds, but also got a local lens over it. So in general, it'd be 9, the option D and option 1 is the safe and appropriate speeds, but there are some slight differences, but 95%.
Essentially, to the extent that option 4 and D represent our interpretation of the safe and appropriate speed with some local amendment, then yes.
Yeah, and I picked it up, was raised by public forum. Does our consultation document mention safe and appropriate speeds in it?
It mentions it. It probably could be more specific.
Yeah, and I guess just to kind of frame my concern is that we're doing this process for a reason, which is clear guidance that we need to be better aligning our speed management systems with what is safe and appropriate. But we're not tying back to what that baseline is. And so we've got the useful stuff about crash data, but obviously the safe and appropriate speeds framework is, takes into account all of those other road safety systems and the wider context. And I'm worried that it is going to go out, and the question is more sort of like, what kind of vibe speed do you want, as opposed to like we're doing this very much tied to safety. And I'm just wondering, is there an option to sort of better integrate those driving forces as to the need to do this kind of scale of change that is proposed?
I might just answer that, Bill, if I may. Both the consultation material and the plan have, before you get into the discussion of options and stuff, have quite, I think, compelling text and discussion around the reason for doing this, and absolutely safety and that is one of the most fundamental drivers of this process. It's absolutely reflected in that text.
Anything further?
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I think I'm more just talking directly about tying into the actual the pre-existing framework that we're working with, which is the Waka Kotahi guidance on safe and appropriate speeds, sort of distinct from just speed as a risk factor in general, and more speed in the context of your road safety systems, whether it is rural or urban, whether it's a civic hub or all of those other considerations that are given, and including what actually safety technology is in and around on the road, to decide where that guidance takes us. And I'm just even just being able to link to that guidance for those who would like to read about it, I think would be beneficial. There's that great just sort of table of these are the criteria for each step, just giving people an understanding of where we're starting from in this process.
Through this year, I mean, we can one of the resolutions, sorry Jane to cut you off there, is to give us some editorial rights to make tweaks to the documents before they go out, and we can absolutely make it stronger, link it to the directly to the safe and the guidance material, the regulations. People can digest that for themselves.
And just one more question, which is, are you ready to go out for November 13th?
Through the chair, look, we would prefer to. There are pros and cons, but from our perspective, having consultation start in February when we're getting so close to the long-term plan RRTP, that's probably pretty taxing.
Thank you, Councillor Courtney.
Well, I'm not going to, Dwayne, I'm not going to assist you at all, because I want a question about the 7th of November going out. That was originally in the document, wasn't it? So, but first of all, can I get from you, Bill, the closing date for February option yet, option 2 there. You go out in mid-Feb and then you close, when was that? I didn't catch it. Did you go?
Through the chair, we haven't specified that, but we'll be looking at a 5 to 6 week consultation period.
Okay. So, right. Now, I think the sooner the better with this, as far as I'm concerned. I think lives are at stake. I know that's getting emotional, but it happens to be a fact, and it's a busy time of the year. You know, the sooner we can get it in, the better. So what's your justification for moving it out from the 7th to the 13th again? Can you just restate that for me?
Through the chair, because there were some questions raised about the timing, we thought it wasn't good to go and book some radio advertising and print advertising for a couple of weeks following this meeting, unless we had the confirmation from this meeting. So we have put it out a week in order to enable us to do those bookings with the understanding that we were going to be proceeding at this stage rather than February, because we don't want to book them and then not be able to use them.
Well, anyway, I think they'd be happy to take your advertising tomorrow.
Through the chair. Also, just in the background with the data that of Waka Kotahi gave us, they gave us a file for our GIS mapping. There's been some minor tweaks and errors just when we're cleaning the data. So that's slowed down the mapping process. And so we're just needing an extra week in there so we can get those maps as perfect as we can, double checking everything.
Well, I feel happier with that. I'm more convinced now. Thank you for that. And the period for this, I, along with Rohan, would support the 13th of November option for consultation. And I'm all for, a reasonable time for consultation, but it's finishing on the 7th of January, right over Christmas, closing on the 7th of January. So it's 8 weeks, is it, the consultation, in my calculations, or have I taken it from the 7th? An 8-week consultation period, option 1? Yeah. And you're quite happy with us finishing on the 7th of January? We'd like to wrap it up before Christmas.
Through the chair, we did have some discussion about whether it was better to do a 5-week that finished in the week before Christmas.
That's where I'm going.
Versus going through to the 7th of January, and we thought that extra time would give people the opportunity to do the responses, but aware that there are some issues with doing it in the middle of the holidays. We had looked at extending it out to the beginning of February, but that then means that it's really difficult to meet the target, the May target for submitting the final for certification.
Right, I've done all my thinking out loud. Thank you.
I've got some questions to staff. So what do you reckon this consultation process is going to cost? And is it shared equally between the two councils? 30,000, 40,000?
Chris, try. I'm quite happy to talk to that through you, Mr. Chair. Perhaps you could just tell the committee what your role is, Chris.
I beg your pardon. I'm Communications Manager for Tasman District Council. We are providing the collateral support for the regional approach to the consultation, so it's across both councils. Similar to what we did with buses, our turn with speed management. I think I would have gone with buses. We are currently looking at a budget of close to 60,000. By the time we do advertising, radio, print, to the degree we can manage around that, and it will be split between both councils.
Thank you.
Okay. Second question then. So we have a new government that's going to be formed maybe by the Christmas. Who knows? The election. One of the election promises from the impending major party was that they were going to go back and scrap a lot of the speed limit stuff that has been put in by the previous government. I remember reading that in the paper quite plainly. So if we go out for consultation now and then something happens and we have to change it all, does that mean we'll have to go out and reconsult again later at a cost of another 60,000?
Jamie?
Through the chair, I might talk about that. I mean, through this process, I've been quite keen to focus on our community and what our community have been asking us for. The speed management plan and the consultation process that the team are proposing is not about what the government wants. This is about what we need to do for our community, what our community wants. So we've heard a lot over many years. You know, there's been a lot of aspirations and a lot of issues related to speed, and we've bound those all up into the consultation document. And now it's the community's chance, our community's chance, to tell us, not the government's chance.
Thank you for that, because you're on the same page as me that it's what our community wants. And I hope Waka Kotahi, not being awful, take it on board that what we come back with is what the community wants and what the community expects to get. So if that can happen and that process is guaranteed, I'm happy for it to be November. If not, lay it on the table.
Thank you. Councillor Hudson.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions. The first being kind of, what's the process if there are some urgent speed limit changes that need to take place, such as what we heard this morning around Matimoti School? If this were to lay on the table or to be delayed, consultation February, plan coming into effect further down the line, what would be the process of making some of those more urgently needed changes?
Through the chair, good question. And I have the answer because Tasman have done this relatively recently. We went through a process to review a speed limit outside of school on Robinson Road near Motueka. And it is possible to do a sort of a standalone, streamlined process. It's a little bit unwieldy, but not as bad as it used to be under the old bylaw. It involves consulting with people who we determine to be affected. So, pretty standard stuff for local government. But it is a lot more straightforward. It takes, I'd estimate, several months, because you've still got to go through council approval processes, and then the Waka Kotahi director approval, and then update the National Speed Limit Register. But it is possible. It's not the most efficient way of doing it for staff time. I think you'd only do that in truly exceptional circumstances. Yep.
The other question was, what are the implications if we do wind up being non-compliant with the speed limit setting rule? What does that mean for us?
Through the chair, I'm not 100% sure. The rule doesn't include any penalties or any repercussions, so I'm not sure what would happen, and I'm not aware of any action Waka Kotahi has taken in the past. So, short answer is I don't know. If in the absolute extreme, there might be some funding questions from Waka Kotahi, but I don't know.
And through the chair, that's the potential consequences from Waka Kotahi. I guess there is a potentially litigation risk around a decision not to proceed with something, which is as a feature of our local government framework now. And I guess the other one is just that the one that Jamie referred to, which is actually we've both got, both councils have a long list of requests for people to lower speeds in places or review speeds in places. And there will be a lot of frustrated punters who have been told this process is coming, and I guess it doesn't.
Just wanting to check with the chair, do you want me to share a view now on the timing of consultation, or that?
Yes. Yeah.
So, for me, I think perhaps I'm spending my time around a different crowd of people, but I feel from the people that I've spoken to that this is going to be quite an emotional topic. and it's going to be quite concerning for a lot of people. Now, granted, we have not got our speed limits right, broadly speaking, but I think that this process needs to be handled incredibly carefully. And so for me, seeing the maps was extremely helpful. I think this is the first time that I've been able to view those interactive maps. And before, for example, landing on some options to consult with, I'd want to go through those and actually get a better grasp on the implications of what people will see before them when we go out to consult on this. Obviously, there's also big changes potentially in the winds, and I think some of those, political changes at a central government level speak to some of people's concerns around where the conversation has been going. This is where they want it to go. The final thing that I'd raise is some of the people that we most affected by reducing speed limits, which Mayor King kind of alluded to. For a lot of people, it's quite easy to say it's, reduce them as low as possible, get it as safe as possible. And I see a lot of merit to that. But there's obviously also this time and efficiency aspect. And so I think about who's going to impact most. And it's people who are already time short. And for me, I often speak from a perspective of having a young family. And I think when we look at consulting over the Christmas period, or the lead up to Christmas, these people who are going to be most affected by this, and who also will want to speak to the other side of, their children's safety as well, they're going to struggle to consult, to engage in meaningful consultation over the Christmas period, is my view. I'm an alternate, so I don't think I'm actually voting on this today, but I feel that needed to be shared, and so my sense is that we should really take our time with this. I would actually say I wouldn't want to land a date until I've looked over those maps and feel comfortable on what we put before the public, because we also don't want to have people look at what we're presenting. They will default to seeing, our default suggested option, and they'll respond to that. So we want to make sure we get that right, so we get the best feedback possible to make this reflect the views of the community. So I would be recommending that we just slow down a little bit and look at this very closely.
Thank you, Councillor Butler.
Thank you, and apologies for lateness. I just had there was a bit of confusion about the start time for me, given that we weren't doing the workshop. So, so having said that, from the point of view of the rural areas, essentially our speed limit in many areas is actually drive to the conditions. That's actually what it is, because it's 100k in places where you can't possibly drive safely at 100k. And
Councillor Butler, I'll just interrupt you for a minute. We were at this stage just talking about the consultation time rather than the actual options.
Oh no, I appreciate that. Thanks, Councillor Bryant. I was just going to go on to say that this is a process that's been started by the previous government, and I think that to keep the continuity going, I would be, and it's been a long time coming, which hence my comments about drive to the conditions, which means we have basically no proper speed control on many roads. I think that it needs to happen. We need to keep the continuity going, and there may be political considerations, but I just wouldn't want to see things held up because of political uncertainty. I think I agree with Jamie that we focus on our communities, and the long lead-in time to this of years of people wanting to have more, proper indications on some of our rural roads, particularly, which I'm speaking to here, about how fast they should go, and particularly how fast other drivers should go. So, I'm not voting today, but I would support the earlier, unless there was some strong, indefinite political consideration that came forward to actually say that we should just delay.
Thank you. Just from myself, Bill, just around the 13th of November option, our approval from Wakakatari is okay with that date?
Yeah, I haven't confirmed that, but that will enable us to meet the submission date in middle of May.
Right.
Whereas leaving it a bit later would mean we would struggle to meet that date.
Right. Rob, are you that is Rob, isn't it? Are you able to assist in that matter in any way?
Yes, I can advise that the request to extend is sitting on the director's desk at the moment. We're waiting for that to be signed at any day now. So that should probably come through, but I can follow that up and chase you up for that and assist. Yeah.
Right. So you're saying that it's likely to be approved.
Right.
Okay, that's reassuring. So as a number of you have said, people, particularly in Natamati, is a classic example. They've been requesting lower speed limits for how long, Councillor Dowler? 15 years probably. So, and we just get so frustrated around every time we get near to doing it, the process change. So I think the issue around Christmas will be of some concern, but there's so many people in the community have been waiting. Someone will raise the issue one way or another around that. So, and that was my other question for you, actually, Rob. How important do you think it is for us to align with your process?
It's a really good question. So, yeah, for the record, Wakakatahi supports option D for the urban and rural 4. But getting back to the process, I think we would like to see you and see this region move forward by going out to consultation as early as possible. I appreciate Christmas is an issue, but you've got other things happening next year which will condense your time frame and possibly run the risk of missing that deadline. And so I take on board also the conversation around supporting local communities, locally developed solutions, driving them for yourselves for local solutions. And the opportunity is here now for you to do exactly that, and we would support that. So that's basically our position on that.
Thank you. That's appreciated, and that gives me a bit of confidence going forward. So I guess I'm leaning towards supporting going out on the 13th of November. So not sure, Dwayne, there is a resolution around that.
Yeah, I wonder if, because it might be better just to discuss each resolution and then come back and complete them apart. But if we go back to the resolutions, if I understand correctly, Councillor Dowler is comfortable with either a slight delay or proceeding now, so that's probably okay for now. O'Neill wishes to proceed. Councillor Courtney wishes to proceed. So does Wakatahi, and you're comfortable. So I guess from my perspective, we would amend that resolution to remove the red text, which talks about or if there's approval to delay. So essentially, the resolution just says, well, let's go out on the 13th. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. What did you say? Before or on the 13th?
Yeah.
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 You've been around Council Eager too long. The former council.
So with that, I guess kind of agreed in principle. When you come back to the resolutions later, we can I guess go back to the options.
Right.
Yeah, and then beginning.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll go to the options now. And so can we have them brought up on the screens, and if anyone has views they'd like to share on who's going to start.
Yeah, and just so we're clear that they are consistent with the ones we workshopped the last workshop.
They were slightly easier to see in the table rather than. Is it possible to bring the table up or? Oh, sorry. Reese, isn't it?
That's correct, yeah. Through the chair, I think I just wanted to give a wee bit of Nelson context in the rural space, which I think is important for our Nelson councillors and colleagues. For the most part, our rural network already has fairly slow speeds that are generally either at or below the Waka Kotahi safe and appropriate speed. So if you think of Maitai Valley, for example, that's already at 50 kilometres an hour. The vast majority of our rural residential areas to the north of the city already have quite slow speeds. So there's probably only really two roads that affect us in the rural space, and that's the road out to Cable Bay and Kokorua Road. So I guess I see it from a Nelson perspective as a lot more of an urban conversation than a rural conversation. And it kind of reinforces Mayor King's view, I think, from his introduction.
Thank you. Councillor O'Neill Stevens.
Yeah, and just to add to that, my view and where I think we broadly are from a Nelson perspective is we've got some passionate views on the urban speeds, far more relaxed around the rural, and happy to take the TDC team's guidance on that.
So we've got, I'm pretty sure the rural option 3 is what would be looking to go out with. Yeah, the straw man. Yeah. And that's what you're after, isn't it? By and large, isn't it? Yeah. And now urban, her thoughts are option C.
And I think we're leaning option D.
Yeah, this is the problem.
There could be a compromise,
right?
But don't suggest it. He says,
don't suggest a C.5.
Right.
We're not doing what.
No. Yes. Okay.
The reason
we are, you see, Mr. Chair, this selected town centres. What are you meaning by that?
So that sits in option B, which is extending the area around schools to school neighbourhoods, and to include some town centres. So we haven't really looked closely at places like Tapawera, for example, which has quite a different environment. But it would include the likes of the Stoke town centre, for example.
If it helps with the decision making, we can show you quickly through the option B of those selected town centres for Nelson, for Richmond, or any township.
Just to contextualise, I think my broad view would be these are what we've identified as the safe and appropriate speeds. For a lot of these neighbourhoods and a lot of the local streets, we've had requests relating to dropping the speed limit. Again, this is a first point to consult, but I think the key difference between this and the rural roads is actually the shift, and indeed the broader impact on things like journey time is far less significant because you're retaining the higher speed limits for your urban connectors. And so your urban streets are usually that last point, whereas a unilateral drop on a rural road, as Mayor Tim highlighted, is far more likely to have a larger impact. I think that the difference between C and D here is such that it's appropriate for us to stick to the safe and appropriate speed guidance.
Councillor Dowler, you want to go with me?
Yeah, this is unfortunately the difference between the city and the rural Tasman, because we have 17 settlements. We have probably 4 major settlements, Richmond, Motueka, and so this is the mix. Like you got Richmond and Nelson are joined at the hip, So it's going to create an issue. We have 30k in Nelson and end up with 40k in Richmond. That's going to be a major hurdle to get over when you come to the likes of my town, Motueka. You start at the airport and you drive for 2.5 k's to get to the CBD. 30 kilometres an hour? Don't think so. The cost to us, if we had our urban connectors at 40k and all our side streets at 30, it's going to break us trying to put the signs up on every side street at 30k. It's just physically daunting to think about it. Where if we were able to blanket our urban area at 40k and just our CBD at 30, the cost just comes right back to being realistic. Just my thoughts as going out to tell our ratepayers that we're going to screw you another 0.5% on your rates because we've got to put all these speed signs up.
You're inviting me to speak, eh?
Oh, yes.
I do see, and my learned colleague here, our esteemed Deputy Mayor for Nelson, may see it in a moment or two, but I do think there's room for a compromise here somewhere. You realise that we have our central city is 30k, and it's been that way for the last 2.5 years. And I mean by the central city, Halifax, Collingwood, Rutherford, and so on place. We're used to that. But does it identify it in this particular set of options? And where would you see it sitting there, our 30k for that?
Well, I think that's probably a staff question to answer.
So any existing speed limit won't go up. So the Nelson CBD is already 30k, so it would remain 30k.
Yes, all right.
Yes, Richard, just a general clarification. Whether the existing speed limit is lower than anything that's proposed, the existing speed limit is not proposed to be changed.
Yes, I listened to Barry, and I think that, there's a word called staging, that we could stage these speed limits too. I'm just trying to be helpful because I think I can feel something coming. Yes, just a sort of I personally would like the 30, and I do like D, but you've got to take into account, it's not our view. It's the community's view, as was so well said by an officer just a moment ago, that we've got to represent here. And so I think before we settle on this today, there'll have to be some compromises, a compromise or two. Don't you?
Yes. Councillor Niels, are you indicating you wanted to speak again?
I would just wanted to flag, also just to contextualise, we're not actually deciding on what we're going to do today. We're just deciding on the preferred option for consultation. And so at the end of the day, whether it's C or D, we're going out with all 4 options. I'm not going to die in a ditch or be absolutely heartbroken either way. It's about going out and talking to the community. We're going to get the feedback no matter what brackets around where there's a recommended. I just think that the brackets for recommended, it's really easy to say it's recommended because that's what we've picked out through the guidance as a safe and appropriate speed.
I guess there's a school of thought around that too, is that whatever option we put out is, some people see that as being predetermined, but that is not the case. But obviously some people will think that. And I guess that's some of my concern around our particularly more rural areas where in some of those cases, we're going to be dropping the speed from 70 or 50 down to 30. It's going to seem like you're crawling, where they've been used to driving at those. Admittedly, outside the schools support that, and town centres are similar to you. At Richmond's already at 30 from just out here is that proposed to change? Right down through the main business area, so that won't change. And Brightwater's at similar, so that people are used to that. But I think it needs to be steps so that people are going down from either 50 or 70 in many of those other areas. Tapperware is a classic example where there's no you go from 50, and now lots of requests for speed lowering out school. That'll happen under this. But then if you're going to drive round the whole mile plus down the main road, Motueka Valley Highway, at 30k, when you've been used to doing 50, it really will seem like crawling. So for us, it's really option C. Natamoti is another one. Get on with that school zone. That'll be under the rural roads. That'll be 80, which is much more safe on either side of the school zone rather than the current 100. And the school zone's a real gain, I think. And it's something we have to do. So, yeah, I think we'd all like to do it as soon as this process will get us on the way. Way forward here. Now, do we need to come to the recommendations and?
Yeah, through the chair, we've got we I think what we've through the discussion has been indicated as a preference for is it three? Rural three, rural option 3. Sorry, there's Councillor with their hand, Councillor Butler. Rural option 3, though, for at least that resolution seems to be a point of agreement. And still looking for an urban option to put into the resolutions.
I think we're thinking 40, but I'll just go to Councillor Butler and hear her view.
Oh, thank you. Look, I just wanted to raise the issue of the active transport plan and the commercial street in Takaka, because the active transport plan has that commercial street business area going down to 30. So how do those two things fit in, which takes priority? Would it still go down to 30, which is very much supported by the community over here? They're waiting for commercial street to go to 30. But I appreciate that the active transport plan doesn't kick in over here for quite a while.
Councillor Butler, unfortunately, Commercial Street is the state highway, so that our plan doesn't cover changes on the state highway. It would come under the Wakakotahi's state highway plan, which will be coming out in February.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Thanks. It's confusing. Yep, got that now.
And obviously, do they just, no, we won't even go there. We'll concentrate on what we're doing.
Yeah, but having said that, there are a number of our communities where the state highway does go through, right through the middle. Yep, so we have to bear that in mind.
I guess they'll have to follow the guidelines as well. And I'm getting the nod around that, yes. Right, we need to move on. So I'm suggesting that we put 40 in there for the urban option. Let's see. And I'm happy to move all of the resolutions relating to that. Thank you.
Right. So running through, Mr. Chair, if I may, so running through the resolutions quickly, just to be clear, we've got the mix up, cleared up around option 2 and 3 for rural roads. Got option C, locked in for or proposed for urban. Option 3, locked in for rural, and going out for consultation now, essentially. So that's the suite of resolutions in front of you.
Right, so we can have discussion, debate around that now, if there isn't.
One more question.
Yes, you can.
Which is just in some of the discussion we've talked about that idea of phasing, which, am I correct in thinking that actually the speed management plans have that potential as well?
Yeah, certainly that's an option once we get the high level consultation through and look at where that's heading.
Thanks, Bill.
Just remind me what the phasing was, sorry.
In terms of being able to signal we're dropping the speed to this, 5 years later, we plan to drop it further.
Oh, okay, over a period of time. Yeah. I just wanted to be clear. Yeah. Right. Any other Councillor Courtney? No.
I'm just talking to my colleague here.
So, no further debate? Okay, I'm sure you will.
I can't resist. I'm very, very happy to support this and get it out for consultation. I think getting it out early is the right thing to do. This is something that has been asked for years and years. With the change of government, maybe the guidance will change. What I certainly hope they don't change is what councils have been asking for years and years and years, which is a better way to set speed limits than through a bylaw process. And at the end of the day, why we're doing this, why we're going out and consulting is about understanding our community's views and designing a speed management plan that works for our communities and the people that live and use and the multiple uses that our roads enjoy. I really agree with what Mayor Tim said around the roading environment needs to speak to the speed limit. And actually the one thing I don't like about the speed setting rule is that it removed the requirement to aim to keep mean speeds within 10% of the speed limit. I don't think this process can just be about throwing up signs. It actually needs to be about making the changes that actually make our roads safer. Because we've already got roads that have a lower speed than what most people drive to them, and that is where our risk profile is highest. And it's actually about getting both the speed limit and then the road design and the roading environment to speak to that speed limit, right? At the end of the day, we should drive to the conditions, and we should be, as the road controlling authorities, making sure that those conditions are speaking to a safe and appropriate speed. So this will be, this is kind of step one of getting what's the direction we're heading. There's actually going to have to be a lot of work practically around how we shape and change our city streets, our rural environments to make sure that everyone who uses our roads is safe and cared for, and that is our duty, because right now the statistics are absolutely horrific. But appreciate getting to work with our wonderful TDC team on this, because the absolute worst outcome would be crossing it over between Nelson and Richmond, and the only way you can tell is because suddenly your speed limit changes.
Thank you. Councillor Courtney.
Well, I'm delighted with this moving forward like this. It's been a lot of work for our management teams and the various councils, and it's so good for the community because we're talking about speed all the time, but it's really about safety, isn't it? And we're bringing these vehicles into line and making safer streets and safer roads for them to be more pleasurable travelling, I believe, and really strengthening our community because of what we're doing. And that, along with our neighbourhoods as well. In a way, giving them back to the people and not giving preference to one type of mobility over another. And all of that is very pleasing for me personally, but also for the community. And as was said, we're representing them here. You said it so well before, and that's got to be front of mind when we're doing this. So I'm very happy to progress this and support it.
Thank you. Councillor Dowler.
Yeah, just to say I'm happy where the plane landed today and look forward to the community response. Hopefully it is a strong response. I've pre-warned our community as much as I can, especially the knockers of the transport choices we've got in the town at the moment, to say that this was coming up. And they say that we don't consult, so I've told them that they've now got the opportunity when it happens. So I'll be pushing the barrow to make sure they do, and if they don't, I'll remind them of it at the finish. Just going back to about 2008, when I was first elected on council, when I sat in a room here with Stuart and a couple of others on a speed management change that we were in. And we had the NZTA representative it was in the day, not Waka Kotahi then. And I always remember Mark Owen saying that a speed limit is not a target, it is the maximum speed for the road. He said people must learn to drive to the conditions, and I'd really, really like to see Waka Kotahi in its next advertising campaign go out and say, drive to the conditions, and have a speed sign and say, this is not a target. Because that's always sat in the back of my mind whenever I've sat at the table. It's not a target. Just because we say you can do 100 doesn't mean you can. It's just the maximum speed that can be achieved. So I'm in for road safety. I've been in it all my life, and I stick with it all the way through. But I don't want us to be on the overkill side. So I look forward to the consultation and the outcome. Thank you.
So for myself, I think this is a great step forward for both areas, particularly Tasman, where we have had people asking for speed limit reductions for a number of years. In fact, some of my constituents in the Lakes, Murchison Ward spent their whole life that I've been a councillor asking me when we can get a speed reduction on our road, and sadly have died and not even going to see this process. So it's just been too long and too hard. So hopefully through this process we can make it easier and quicker. It does need, and Councillor O'Neill-Stevens related to this, it does need to be, the speeds do need to be relevant to what it looks like. If it's a rural area with not much distractions or obstacles around, it needs to be at a reasonable level that people can drive at, because it needs to look like a 50k if it's 50k or 30k. Otherwise people will just not take any notice. And I remember I drove into council for 20 plus years from Tapuria, and I could just about automatically, without even looking down at the speed, know when it started to look like urban, you just slowed down, not having to look at the sign or anything. So there's a balance here between safe and appropriate speeds and what's real. I'm not even sure balance is quite the right word, but being appropriate to the environment that you're driving in as well. So that's something we'll have to balance up as we do the decision making around the consultation. But I guess we'll wait and see what we get in feedback from the community. I suspect most people will want the speed lowered in their road, their area, but higher everywhere else, which is a traditional problem across the nation just about, I think. So there's going to be a few challenges ahead, but it'll be great to get this out and get the feedback and be able to get on with it. So what I'm going to do now is put the resolutions in their entirety, and ask those that are able to vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? The resolution is carried. So with that, the resolution, we move forward. I'd like to thank all the staff for the work they've done, particularly the Tasman and Nelson teams. So it's been a challenging time, but I'm sure we've ended in a good place, and it's going to be more work going forward, but I'm sure we're all up to it. So I really do appreciate your efforts. Thank you. Do we have any other items?
Thanks, Chair. Just to confirm that the resolution you passed was for at least 5 weeks, and that gives some discretion to council. And I think we'll be saying closing on the 7th of January to give the longest possible time, if you're okay with that.
Right.
Other than it's closing here.
And who would like to do that? Any volunteers? Sure. Thank you, Councillor O'Neill.
Kia hora te marino, kia whakapapa ponamu te moana, aroha atu, aroha mai, tēnā tātou, tēnā tātou, tēnā tātou katoa.
Thank you. That brings us to the conclusion of the meeting. Thank you all for your attendance and enthusiastic input. That's appreciated.